I'm Naveen Jain, and this is another episode of Moonshots. In this episode, instead of having a guest, I'm going to be answering your questions. As you know, this is my favorite part where I get to answer your questions. So please don't stop sending me the question. If it's on your mind, I want to answer it. So please feel free to continue asking me the questions. So I'm going to, this episode, I'm going to be having Mandy lead me with the questions you have.
Oh boy, I'm the leader in this one. I don't know about that. We do have some amazing questions, though, from your awesome listeners, and this is both on Instagram and YouTube. I know that our last question episode was all about YouTube. This time we have some Instagram users as well, and there's some pretty interesting questions. So I'm looking forward to getting your answer to this. You always have amazing answers to these, and I always learn something too. So I'm genuinely interested in this. Pranav Sharma on YouTube says, I am an Indian and want to start real estate business in America while being an Indian citizen only. But my parents are not allowing me to go to America to start real estate flipping, as I don't know anything about that. I mean, I know about business, but initially I need someone to guide me on pieces of properties, at what price should I buy and how to rehab it and what price should I sell it, and don't have any known person to guide me. I'm 19. Do you have any advice?
Well, if you're 19, my first advice is please finish your college. Not having the education is the worst thing you can do. Don't let someone tell you there are so many financially successful people who are a college dropout. For every one person who actually succeeds, there are millions who never make it. So to me, there is nothing better than actually finishing your education, going to college and learning. The second thing is, I just completely disagree with your whole idea of flipping and focusing on just making money. You have to have a purpose in life. You're 19. And if you can't even think of why you're doing it, and you're simply saying, can I just go buy real estate and flip it so we can make money? That to me is fundamentally wrong. Anytime you start a business just to make money, there's a great chance you will absolutely fail at it. Have a purpose. What are you going to do when there are tough times? If there's nothing driving you that is really your connection to your soul, if you're not waking up in the morning, jumping out of the bed, and real estate goes down, how will you get through those tough times if you have absolutely no foundation, no reason to be actually doing it, right? So to me, don't do something just to make money. Find your real purpose in life. What are you willing to die for? What would you do if you had all the money in the world, and do that right now? So please don't go out. Listen to your parents and just don't go out and start to flip real estate. You know nothing about it. So I'm not suggesting you can't succeed at it, but even if you succeed, it's a matter of time that you will fail. So please just don't go out and gamble. This to me is no different than going to a casino and gambling. So my advice to you is not what you're looking for, which is to finish your education and then don't gamble with your life and with your money.
I don't think they were expecting that. And you got really fired up on that answer. You're really passionate about that. You're very passionate about education, aren't you?
Yes.
And I know that you are the least educated of your siblings who has still a very amazing education yourself. And you've made sure that all your children do as well.
Yeah. I mean, to me, as I said, all three of our children, they all went to, Stanford and Wharton, and they've done amazingly great job. And even after they graduate, I expect them to go out and learn from other entrepreneurs rather than start your own business. Because to me, about learning as much as you can before you jump on to, essentially taking a lead and becoming an entrepreneur. So the more knowledge you have, the better the chances to success. In fact, despite what you might hear, that all the great companies that started by 20-year-olds, I can tell you that more unicorns are started by the people who are 40 and above than actually people who are 20s.
Because there's more experience and knowledge, right? Probably because they failed more times, right?
And they learned a lot over their life.
It's easier to fail, though, when you have nothing to fall back on. What do you think about her plan, or anyone's plan, to come over from another country and just kind of, without knowing anything, make it happen? I mean, I know that you came over from another country and you said very little money at the time, but you did work for Microsoft.
And that's actually what I would do. My advice to the person would be, do come to United States. It's a great, great country. I love this country. It's a great opportunities out here. But if you want to be in the real estate business, please dedicate 10 years of your life working with the people who are in that business. Learn every trick of the trade from the person that
after you get your education.
After you get your education, become the underling for a person who will teach you all the ins and out. So don't go out and just go try out these different things. They are intricacies. There are things you need to learn. So my advice will be, if you come to this country, work for people who are in the real estate business and work for the master. Just like, in India, you would work for a guru. You'll go out and learn from them. And that's exactly what you should be doing. And there's going to be a time when you say, now I have learned everything. I am ready to start on my own.
Right.
And that's the time you should be starting.
And it seems like also what would be beneficial, and one of the reasons that I'm sure you're saying get your education first, is that when you come over to the United States and you're pitching these real estate people who are very familiar with real estate, who are making a lot of money in it, and they're really great at it, and say, hey, I'd like to work under you, they're going to say, well, why should I choose you? There's a lot of people I could choose. Well, I have a bachelor's degree, or I have this degree, and I know this much about it already because I've studied it and taken my time. It seems like it would be difficult to find somebody that's great to mentor you if you have nothing to give them, basically.
So, education system is really what I would say is a safety net. Even if you're going a high wire act and you're very experienced, even the most experienced high wire act have a safety net under them because it happens. Right. So when you don't have education, there is nothing to fall back on. And again, when you're working for someone, you have to give them some value. The fact is you're passionate about it. The fact you care about it. Fact you're willing to work hard for it goes a long way. But having education underneath it really gives you a leg up. So I would always say, finish your education, come to this country, work for someone, learn from the master of the tricks of the trade. So, if you're not working for a master, you will never learn.
Okay. What are you thinking? Because there are people out there in the world who are successful entrepreneurs and they don't have the safety net of education, but I'm sure they have some other kind of safety net. If you look at people like Grant Cardone, for instance, he doesn't have a college degree. Sure. What does he have? What is the safety net?
So again, just remember, for every person who can walk the whole wire across without the safety net, there are going to be people who can get through it. Yeah. Not every time you fall. But if you look at the number of people, if you look at 1 million people who don't have a college degree, how many of them actually go out and become successful? Yeah. So for every one Grant Cardone or Bill Gates people you can go out and name, for every one of them, there are 1 million people who did not make it.
Exactly. Right? Do you think that, but what I'm saying is that I think that they still have to have some sort of safety net that is different than education, or do you think that they're just working so hard and they're always so having that anxiety that if this doesn't work, I'm going to, it's all over? It's a far bigger risk.
And again, I said, personally, I think the risk reward doesn't add up to me. I really believe having education gives you such a solid foundation that you can stand on top of and fall back to. Yeah. That means even if your business fails, you have education to be able to get a job, to be able to go out and do something next time. Yeah. But not having anything to fall back on, I just think is too high risk.
Yeah, that's interesting because you are very much about not really taking risks. And even when I asked you before about taking risks for an entrepreneur, you said great entrepreneurs don't take risks. That's right?
They de-risk everything. When you start a company, what's the first thing you say? What are the 5 things that could go wrong? Yeah. And let's try to de-risk every one of them so we know is there a business out there. Yeah. There may be no market. Can you actually quickly test the thing to make sure there is a market for it, right? That means can you spend $100 on Google, get people to come to it, and can they actually pre-buy the product from you? So you know there is a market, right?
This is so fascinating, and I'm sorry to interrupt you, but it's such a dynamic and it's such a different idea because you say, don't take risks, test everything first, but you also say, and it's very easy for people to misinterpret this, that if you have your moonshot, be willing to risk your life for it. But you're saying only after you've tested it. Only after you've tested it, do that.
Well, I think it's slightly different. What I'm saying is, you absolutely want to dedicate your life to it. But part of dedication of life is to de-risk the things that can possibly go wrong. Hire the people who can actually help you de-risk it. So if you're not an expert, like I am no expert in healthcare, what did I do? I didn't know much about artificial intelligence. I hired the head of IBM Watson to help me, guide me with the artificial intelligence. I hired the expert people on the gene expression, like people like Ellie Perlina, who came from Craig Venter's team, to actually help us do that. I did not know anything about RNA analysis. I hired Dr. Vucic, who came from Los Alamos National Lab, having developed this technology. So my point is, I hired the great people, and my job is to push them to the boundaries of what is possible. Their job is to keep telling me it can't be done, and my job is to keep pushing them and saying, why can't it be done?
Right. Wow. That is great. And that seems like you are the perfect person to be a CEO and to lead a company, because you are the visionary.
Well, I just said my job is more than the vision. My job is to keep finding the reasons why certain things are possible and push the experts to get there, despite them telling you that it can't be done.
Mm-hmm. Here is an excellent question that I think you're going to love, because this is a response to your quote about, or when you were sitting with Deepak Chopra, who's a good friend of yours, and you were talking about humility. It said that the sign of a truly successful person is humility. I'm not going to try to, I guess I will try, because it would be funny for me to pronounce this person's name. Mal Amal Amalal. That is their name. This person says, agree. It's interesting that nearly all heads of state and CEOs of the largest global corporations universally lack this essential quality, however. What does that say about the future prospects for humanity and planet Earth?
Well, actually, the thing is, if you have the arrogance left in you, and that means you're still trying to prove something to someone else or yourself, the day you become humble is the day you actually become successful. And part of the other thing is, people have this idea their own self-esteem really comes from showing people how great they are.
Right.
And to me, the day you can fall in love with yourself, the day you get so comfortable who you are, you don't have to actually prove something to someone else or look for their approval.
Yeah.
The reason people are constantly telling people how great they are or showing this arrogance is they're looking for their approval.
They're trying to believe it themselves.
That's right. But the idea here is, if you can just love yourself so much that you get comfortable with who you are, then you automatically don't have to look for someone's approval and actually not have to show you the arrogance, right? In my opinion, when you have to walk into somebody and tell them, do you know who I am? It really tells you that you are really nobody.
Right.
The way when you walk in and everyone says, Mandy, I'm so glad you're here. You don't have to ever say, do you know I'm Mandy?
Yeah. Do you know who I am?
Right. My point is, to me, that humility tells you that not only you are comfortable, you believe in yourself, you have a self-esteem, and arrogance tells me that you really are not comfortable who you are. You're constantly trying to prove something to yourself, or worse yet, looking for other people's approval.
So I think one of the interesting things is this guy is, I think or woman, I'm not sure this name, which I will not repeat. I'm not sure if that's a man or woman, but this human, it sounds like is confused between titles meaning success and what is actually real success meaning fulfillment. Because they're saying, why is it that CEOs and heads of state don't have humility, but you're saying that successful people have humility? And it's like, well, not all CEOs and heads of state are successful, you're saying.
That's correct. And I think that, to me, a part of it is people get married to their business card, and their identity becomes their business card. So when you ask them who you are and say, hey, Mandy, when you go introduce yourself, I say, I'm Mandy, I'm a CEO of blah, right? And that to me is a wrong approach. When you introduce yourself, it should never be about your business card. It should be what you stand for. So if I walk into someone and say, I'm Naveen Jain, I'm currently focused on preventing and reversing chronic diseases. That's who I am. Yes, I happen to be a founder and CEO of Wyoming, but that's my business card.
And it doesn't limit your future.
That's right. And to me, it's always about I am an entrepreneur. I am a father. I am a husband. I am a person who cares about certain things that I'm trying to solve, right? And that's really, you have to define yourself with what you do, what you stand for, and who you are as an individual rather than your business card. And, the people who are, to some extent, are the heads of state, and I'm not going to even name our president of our country here, but the people, when you have to stand up and say, I am successful, you know how much money I have. You know what? I don't even know how much money you have, but I really don't care. And as far as I'm concerned, you're not successful.
Yeah, especially because you have to say that, and that's what gives you significance, right? Yeah. Because as you say also in another quote, is everybody, once you become successful, you realize all you really want is significance.
Yes. And, to some extent, most people who have money, what do? They try to do something meaningful.
Yeah.
And it just seems to me so odd that you spend most of your life earning money, and when you are about to die, you want to do things that somehow...
This is very fascinating, because Vanderbilt and Rockefeller and Carnegie, all of these guys way back in the day when our country was, coming around the Industrial Revolution, they all were in this bloodthirsty fight to make as much money as possible, and they were what would be trillionaires today. Like, I think it was Rockefeller that gave the country a loan. The United States of America, he loaned it money. Rockefeller did. But when they got old, it became not about taking money. They all tried to see who could give it away the fastest. It was literally who can give away the money the fastest, because they realized that in that game, okay, now I've got all the money, now what?
And to me, what if you live your life doing things that are meaningful, things that are purposeful? An amazing thing happens. You still make a lot of money, but you never focus on making money. You focus on the purpose. You focus on what is meaningful, what is significant, what will help 1 billion people live a better life. And if you do that, yes, you will create an amazingly successful enterprise, and people will salute you for that rather than actually think that, for some reasons you have done things the way that people didn't expect it.
Right, exactly. There's so much to learn, and it's like you were saying, life is a great teacher, and it's amazing that people are still chasing the things today that we learned from Rockefeller and Carnegie and all of them. Like, that was so long ago, and we still are doing the same thing and wondering why it doesn't work, and seeing this, old billionaire or whatever who's unhappy. And it's like, well, it's not like there wasn't examples to see that.
Well, Mandy, I think I just want to touch on the things you mentioned, that happiness, right? The happiness never comes from owning something or someone else. The happiness is something that comes from inside, right? If you are unhappy, then it doesn't matter. You could be sitting in a paradise and still be unhappy.
Right.
And if you can find happiness inside you, you could be sitting in a dark room and still be happy, right? So to me, don't ever think owning something or having something or someone will make you happy, because the minute you do that, you have given the remote control of your happiness to them, and they can make you happy or unhappy.
When was a time that you, or perhaps a better way to say it is, when did you realize that making yourself happy was the only way to bring your best to the world? When did you realize that? And who taught you? How did you learn it?
Again, Mandy, I'm going to go back to the same thing. Life teaches you things, right? It is, life never stops teaching. We stop learning. Mm-hmm. And to me, there's rarely a one single instance, very rarely, that changes who you become.
Because you don't learn from one time, right? You have to have repetition.
And I think what also happens is a continuum of things, right? So everything builds on top of each other. So it is really, your life is a continuum of your experiences. It could be the last thing that happened that allowed you to say that was a catalyst. But really, that catalyst was built on top of a lot of things that happened before that. So I find that every interaction you have, every moment you live in your life is teaching you things. And there's going to be a time when you become a different person, but that's really the aggregate of all the experience that you have had, rather than one single experience that changes you.
Right, exactly. So this is just something where you opened yourself up to learning from life, and this is one of the things that you learned, that you integrated into your life.
Yes.
Like, hey, I'm acquiring things is not causing these people to be happy. What other thing can I chase? And you were like, fulfillment.
And knowing
making yourself
what,
happy.
And having a purpose in life.
Yeah.
Having, anytime you start a business, ask yourself, what is, God forbid, if this is actually successful, would it help 1 million people, 1 billion people, right? And if it's not, it's just not worth doing, because at the end of the day, it takes the same amount of effort to build a small business than to build a large business, right? So have a purpose, do something that you care about.
Sounds like you don't want to run around the hamster wheel. You want to do something that's impactful and meaningful and is really going to change the way we live.
And you know what? That's how you create amazingly great company. So it's the fact you're watching Moonshots, you have already decided that these audacious ideas are absolutely worth doing. And anytime you can do something that can help 1 billion people, you absolutely can create multi-$100 billion company, right? So if you want to make $1 billion, go out and solve a $10 billion problem. And the problems that tend to be $10 billion problem do end up helping the billions of people live a better life. So go find something that you're willing to die for and then live for it. Find that will, if you're working on something and you don't jump out of the bed every single morning, go find something else to do, because life is not worth living if you can't jump out of the bed every morning. So thank you for joining me on this episode of Moonshot. And Mandy, it's amazing that our people who are listening to our podcast are actually interacting with us, asking questions. So please keep sending us the question, and your question may be the next episode. Thank you.
Good job.
All right, let's go have some lunch.